right, welcome to wasmCloud Wednesday for March the 9th, 2022. We've got a lot of fun stuff to show today, and I've got a call coming in. Just a second. Let me send somebody a voicemail. All right, hilarious. Couldn't plan that any better. I'm going to go and start with a quick look at our new training stuff that we're getting ready to release, sort of like an early preview. Oh, Jordan, you're on. Do you want to do the demo of the
Uh,
introductory stuff, do the walkthrough?
yeah, sure. Give me 30 seconds. Running. I've lost my mind today.
That's okay. I hope you find it.
It's huh, me too.
All right, so we're going to start with a demo of the new training platform we're getting ready to launch, which I'm super excited about. It's sort of what we always hoped we would have with Kata Coda. And then Steve's got a great demo for us today around some of the new capability providers that we have out and new demo that we're releasing out to the community as a POC. So Jordan, I'm excited to see what you've been working on. I know you've been working hard.
Yeah. So yeah. Hi everyone. So yeah, I showed this a few weeks back, but we've made a little bit of progress on it. And one a few things we've done is I've done a direct port over from Katacoda into Instruct of our two pipelines we had over there. And right now they're private because there's a lot of content updating I need to do. It still references a bunch of the pre 0.50 things, but we're getting there very quickly. And in a matter of days, we're going to have the whole thing updated. Like there is no more REPL, so things like that have to go away. But one of the great things that we've gotten from this is one of the hard points early on was it took like 5 minutes to bootstrap this. Luckily, the way this platform handles things, we get the whole environment bootstrapped in just under 30 seconds, and that includes like Wash, it includes wasmCloud, it includes Nats, and all everything you need to be a happy developer. Um, and yeah, and the next great thing about this is after I do a little bit of magic with the GitHub Actions, this will be another open source repo in the wasmCloud org that anyone's going to be able to contribute to, right? Because this is a GitHub based type thing. And a few of the things, we see, we see Wash, it's a very familiar filling terminal, very familiar filling instructions. The washboard looks great in it. It's fully, functional. So yeah, this is where we're at. And as again, right now we're at the point where we've done a direct port. It took me a few days to get the actual functionality. A few weeks to get the actual functionality working. But now we're at the point where we can iterate, and we can iterate fast on content. And pretty much what this is going to look like soon is you will be able to go to just the Cosmonic page, and we will have a full wasmCloud topic here with all the fun stuff that we can figure out what we want to help train people on. And I assume at some point we'll have the repo up, and we'll start people to put topics in there, like what do you want to see training on, what is what can be really built upon documentation to support it. And long term down the road, one of the really cool things about this platform is it does embed really nicely, and it does embed into our development website. So fingers crossed, once we get a little further down the road, we'll be able to go to wasmcloud.dev, have the website there, and split pane it down at the bottom, and be able to look at all this on a single in a single view. So I don't want to commit to any hard timelines, but I would say that we will be in a place where we can start testing these and filling these out probably in the next week or so. but yeah, that's really it. Sorry that was a little ad hoc. I didn't have my thoughts, yeah, in line.
No, absolutely not. Jordan, thank you so much. And you had so many criteria coming into this that it could be embeddable, editable by the community, that you could, do the whole experience, including the UI, right in the web browser. And I really want to say thank you so much for all the hard work you put into this. I know you looked at, a bunch of different platforms and really did a lot of work behind the scenes here. I think this is going to be a huge accelerant that we can build out, take our demos and examples and things like the pet clinic, and really give people a whole experience that's completely frictionless to help them learn about our community and what we're doing. So this is an incredible effort, and thank you so much for all the hard work, Jordan.
Absolutely.
That's great. Any questions for Jordan? Super. Steve, are you ready for your demo, or do you want me to go through a couple of announcements and things like that before we go on?
I'm good. I'm good.
All right.
We can start.
Let's hand it off to you for your demo. We love starting the meetings with demos. I think they keep everybody engaged and interested, and people always love to see what's going on. This is a bunch of work that's probably 3 or 4 threads that are all being brought together, for kind of one presentation here. So I'm excited about this one. Go ahead.
That's great. I'm excited too. And if you enable screen sharing, I'll get started.
I already did. I think. Aren't you? Which Steve?
I'm lowercase Steve.
Who's bigger case Steve?
That's me. It's my other identity.
All right. Okay. All right. I gave it to the wrong one. I'm gonna put that one on you. That was not on me, like usual.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let me. Oops. Sorry. Let me disappear this. Okay. First thing I'll talk about is over here on the right. So we have a new Blobstore S3 capability provider. So there's a new interface in the interfaces repo that describes a Blobstore. Most people are familiar with the key value store, which our main implementation of that is backed by Redis. And keys and values are strings or serialized structure. Blobs are sort of intended to be a little bigger. They have a concept of a container, which for S3 is a bucket. And so the interface has operations like you can list all the buckets, you can create and delete buckets, you can create and delete objects within them. And we also have a contribution pending from the community of a different implementation of Blobstore that uses a file system. That's a pending PR now. This one here, it's not in published to our OCI, the Azure CR. So today, if you want to grab this, you have to build from source. But within a day or two, we'll get that up on Azure. There are a lot of ways to configure your AWS credentials. You can do it through environment, or if you happen to be running in Kubernetes, then it can pick up the EC2. If you're running in EC2, you can pick up the EC2 credentials. So that's regardless of Kubernetes or not. A lot of ways to configure that. And then there's an app actor that is in the examples repo, PR, it's about to merge, that uses this. It uses the Blobstore as the backend and the HTTP server capability provider. So when you send it a image over HTTP, it will upload it to the Blobstore. So I'll give you a quick demo of that. I have a couple of images here. And I have the wasmCloud running on this machine. So if I do curl localhost 8080. So that's going to go to the HTTP server capability provider. Images is a command that it responds to that lists all of the current images in the bucket that we've designated for images. And you can change which bucket it goes to through your link definition. It returns a JSON object which lists the name of the bucket, the size of the file, and when you upload an image, it computes the SHA-256 of the image and uses the same extension. It also has a little bit of code to try to determine the image type and sets the MIME type and normalizes the extension for that. So it also avoids uploading duplicate files since SHA-256 is effectively collision free. So I'll just show you an example of to upload an image. Let's say I upload this large bird, which is you'll notice this is a 2.5 megabyte file. And I'm going to talk about another cool feature that we've just added. Curl-T does a post. And after it does the post, it returns a little bit of JSON information. Here's the SHA of the file it uploaded, the original name, and the new name where it's being stored in the bucket. If you do that again, it's returned faster, but I got the same result because it computed the SHA and realized that it had already been uploaded, so it doesn't bother uploading it to S3 again. So this is kind of a cool demo that you can take to use for all sorts of image processing. We may do some variations of this for some machine learning demos as well. So I wanted to talk about this file size here. You might remember that the default NATS configuration has a limit of 1 megabyte for a NATS message. And although you can configure that to be a little bit larger, the NATS team recommends that you don't exceed 2 megabytes. You don't exceed very many megabytes because the performance can really degrade. We have implemented a big effort from Kevin and the team, transparent chunking of messages. So in any API now in wasmCloud, if you send a message that's larger than a threshold, we will break it up and into chunks and send it over NATS. This uses a really cool feature of NATS Jetstream that has some built-in object stores, and it can resort the packets to be in order. And then we reassemble them on the other side, and then the receiver receives the message. And so that should allow you to send messages, at least in the several hundred megabytes now. And so we don't believe that wasmCloud users should have to worry about the NATS message limitation. And it was really this implementation of the Blobstore that made us realize that this is a really important problem we need to address now. So that's a really exciting capability.
All right, Steve, so to recap, there's a lot that we just demoed today. The new Blobstore S3 provider, transparent chunking, a new example in the repo that ties together. Oh, and the ability to use the IAM STS assumed role functionality that is on EC2 and transparently available in Kubernetes through stuff like kube2 IAM. Is that the sort of big summary checklist here?
Yes, yes, thanks. I forgot to mention the IAS assume role if you're using STS, which some enterprises do.
Yeah, that is a ton of stuff. That is really enterprise level of functionality, and not too transparently. This was driven by real users out in the field that we have on the enterprise side that needed to check some corporate security boxes in order to get things into production. So it's amazing to see all this come together, and I'd love people to test this out and give us some feedback on this demo. I think you really went the extra mile if you also did the MIME checking on the files, and the SHA-256 is cool. And to point out that is that calculated in a streaming fashion, so you get a little bit of the file, you calculate a little bit of the hash.
Uh, nope, it's not that cool, but
Okay.
it does do the hash within wasmCloud before it sends to S3, so you avoid the uploading the bits to AWS. There is one more new capability provider that I don't know if you announced on last week's call, but there's another implementation of the key value, which is backed by HashiCorp Vault, and you can use it for storing secrets. So that's also in the capability providers repository.
That is pretty awesome. We did not. I don't know. I wasn't on last week, so I don't know if you guys announced it. But that's another one we should get a demo checked in for. This is phenomenal. Open discussion. Anybody have questions on this? All right. Well, I guess if there's no questions, Steve, thank you so much for taking the time to walk us through all that. I'm excited to see where all that's moving. I've just got a handful of small things to share this morning. First, a huge thanks to Stuart and the Red Badger crew for hosting the Cosmonic team last week for the We Love WebAssembly outside the browser event. And I would just call to action, if you did not have a chance to see that, that is available online now on demand. If you go right to redbadger.com, you can find a link to it. And then second, the wasmCloud crew will already be in Europe for KubeCon in May, but we may also be joining our friends in London for QCon next month. So we got kind of a last minute ask to see if we could surge in and do a presentation. I'll let you guys know as soon as we get anything confirmed there. Just open floor. Are there any other community announcements that people want to make or share today about stuff that's going on around the WebAssembly world? Brooks, you have your hand up?
I do. And I was going to share, but you all know how that goes.
Every time. It's funny. I think you're even a owner of this meeting now. So I'm gonna say that this is no longer on me. You're yeah, this you're your co-host already.
Who knows? Well, yeah, so I just wanted to share, and maybe Taylor was going to talk about the same thing, but not only will we be in Europe, but Taylor and I will be doing a talk at KubeCon. We got our proposal accepted, which is very, very exciting. We'll be talking about, let's see, it's on Wednesday. We'll be talking about running WebAssembly in wasmCloud during the main KubeCon conference. So we're pretty excited to do this. We're pretty excited to actually do a talk live and, on stage, in person, all the things. So just wanted to share that and invite everybody to come watch us.
Brilliant. Taylor, did you have something to share? You're on mute, double secret mute. I like how on your background, it doesn't get just the space between your headphones and your head, so it kind of looks like a halo. I just wanted to share that.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, there you go. Always the core audio D. No idea why if you transfer between meeting things, it just dies. Anyway, so what I was going to say is there's something we had neglected to share the past 2 or 3 weeks of some changes that landed in the last bug fix release, 0.52.4. Is that the right number? And what we discovered is it's just an important performance enhancement. And I did not come prepared to demo this, and it's really not that impressive. It's just watching some graphs. But it turns out that when you were starting up, particularly providers, and even actors in some cases, you would spike your memory usage really high. So when you ran on constrained devices with maybe half a gig or a gig of memory, that had just a little bit less than your normal like servers, it would spike and you would completely get killed or die because you'd run out of memory when you're starting a provider. And so we did some digging and stuff and some memory profiling and found out that some things were getting held onto. So we actually introduced some changes that made it so that those things never get written into memory. You ended up with like a double or triple copy of the provider in memory, which was super weird. And so now that's fixed. So if you're running the latest version, you'll notice that when you start a provider, your memory usage goes up by it was like a megabyte, I think, when you start a provider. It's pretty nuts. So in addition to the actual memory that the operating system allocates to the provider, the only thing you're using to actually run it is like less than a meg of about a meg or less than a meg of memory. So that was just something we forgot to point out that I'm not sure many people were running into yet. We ran into it Cosmonic because we are running at scale and on constrained devices. And so we ran into that. But if you have been, if you have been running into this, then that will solve the problem. So I just wanted to point out that that actually happened, and it's really cool. We did some testing, and just on like my laptop, you can run. We spun up like 4 or 5 different actors, or 4 or 5 different providers, and like 1,000 actors, and we had only used like 100 megs of memory, 200 megs of memory. It was pretty insane. So that was just something that we forgot to share that happened, and some performance tweaks that occurred.
That's awesome, Taylor. That's another great one. We should, try to do a better job of curating these together in a way that they're more accessible. But I do really appreciate the core group of folks that comes here, as well as the 50 to 100 folks that usually watch us week to week on YouTube, and for you staying up with our progress and what we're working on and what's important to us. So we already did some community announcements. Open floor, is there anything that folks want to bring up this week to talk about?
I have a question that is perhaps better suited for a Slack channel, and I'm also wrangling the child at the moment. But there's a draft PR on the interfaces repo that if you pulled up, maybe we could chat about it for a minute. And if not, happy to do it elsewhere.
I didn't get the whole question about there's a draft PR. Did anyone else grab it or get the question?
Yeah, so forgive the background noise, but my question is, when we have situations like this PR where different implementations of a provider may kind of vary, so like the scan operation on Redis, well, not quite different, but it is different than the scan operation in DynamoDB. Is this an appropriate interface to represent the fact that that might be different?
Okay, Kevin, Steve, I don't know. I would invite one of the two of you to maybe comment about, the different perspectives on dialing in an interface.
Yeah, I think I understand the question. So the question is, how do we evolve interfaces, and either in non-breaking ways or breaking ways? Is that what you're asking about?
Correct. So when an individual provider may need to have some implementation detail that might not be that interesting to a interface user, does that make sense?
Yeah. There are some, so that's kind of an involved question, and we need to spend some time to document ways that an interface can evolve. There are non-breaking ways interface can evolve, and breaking ways. And right now, there's not a formal interface version number that's codified in, and so which version of the interface you get would, if it changed significantly, it would depend on when you actually compiled it, and that's not a great thing. So what we so this is probably on us to document what to do. If there's a breaking change, well, first of all, if there's a new function added, because of the way we're using traits in Rust, it would require adding that new function, even if it's a stub that throws an error, like a not implemented error. If it's not implemented, that would still require changes to everybody who's implemented that interface. So that's kind of a hurdle for adding a method right now. And that, again, is something we'd like to be able to make non-breaking. Probably what's going to happen is we'll have to change the name of the interface. So instead of wasmCloud : key value, it might be wasmCloud : key value : v2, something that effectively makes it another interface, because you never want to accidentally link an actor to a provider if it wasn't signed to say it knows that version of the interface. But we do need to, so that we don't get an explosion of incompatible versions. And, we certainly don't want to get to like the DLL hell of the old Windows days. So we want to figure out a way to do it where it doesn't create a infinite number of versions to manage.
Yeah, that's actually, I had exactly that question too, about when, one implementation of a provider may not actually support, or should it be able to not actually support every operation. And Brooks, to answer your question in the chat, yes, I had that question too, which is that, is there any approach in the specific scenario where Dynamo and Redis and provider XYZ for key value may slightly differ in their APIs, right? And we want to provide a single API from the perspective of the interface itself.
Yeah, I know Kevin has his hand up, and I know he's got a lot to add on this topic. I just want to say that the Vault key value provider does not implement all of the methods in the key value interface, and you can see in the README for that provider that some of them are just going to return an error because it doesn't make it. There's no list operation that makes sense for a HashiCorp Vault. So, so that's one way to handle it, but there are others. But go ahead, Kevin.
I think everybody pretty much said what I was going to say. At the basic level, like Steve said, we have an example of a provider that doesn't support all of the key value operations. Ideally, in the future, we'd like to have that be something that is a little bit better than just returning an error when you attempt to call that.
Right.
And I think the other thing is there's a philosophical debate that I don't think we've had yet that revolves around whether or not a new version of an interface should constitute a new interface. Because, put another way, is V2 of the key value interface something that needs to be signed on an actor separately than V1 of the interface? And there are consequences to doing it one way or the other. So we just need to kind of hash out what those are. Because I guess it also depends on, how how the interface has evolved. And I think part of the real problem is there's no universal answer in terms of, because somebody could actually create a new version of an interface that is such a big deal that it does need to be a separate signature or a separate claim. But then something like adding an optional feature like the scan operation, does that really need another interface name, or is that really just like, an incremental?
Right. Theoretically non-breaking to any other existing provider, hypothetically.
I mean, it is technically non-breaking, right? I mean, you could add this operation to an interface, and you could have multiple actors floating around in a lattice, some of whom are aware of this operation, some of whom aren't, and all would be well in the world. There would be no conflict.
Right.
So, yeah, like I said, it's nuanced, and there's probably a lot of discussion that I think we need to have over the provider revisioning story.
Cool. Well, I hope it was if this is the right forum to bring up these types of questions, despite the screaming child in the background. Yeah.
It's definitely the right forum.
Okay, cool. Of course, we're having a meltdown here at the exact inopportune moment, but
No, Matt, and look, and I think that this is one of the real strengths of wasmCloud, and one of the things that I really appreciate about our design. I really think that all truly scalable software is at its core very pluggable. And I think what I like about what we're doing here as a feature is ultimately users can make their own decisions around adding their own capabilities or how they choose. We're compatible with a number of different sort of perspectives on this. And to Kevin's point, we probably need to ship everybody on this call some bourbon and sit down and sort of come up with what is our kind of community stance on this before these spiral out of control. I do love the velocity of new capability providers that we've had coming online this year, and the diversity, those that are public and on track to becoming first-class providers like Blobstore and Vault, as well as on the on the private side. So it's just neat to see folks doing that. I did just host a bourbon tasting for 70 people on Monday, or 60 people or so, and I'm happy to get one going for the community call folks. I think it would be a lot of fun, and it's probably overdue. We talked about doing the happy hour in DC anyway for folks like Matt that are local. So watch for some messages on Slack about that. I've already got, I think, another 30 or so poured, so we could do one for maybe 30 people. Do we want to? Is there more to discuss on this, Kevin? Let me ask you to sort of like decide when we draw the discussion to a close. Or I'm sorry, Stuart. Were there other people that wanted to chime in on their perspective on this?
Sorry, no. I just wanted to say a big thank you to Brooks and Taylor for talking last week, because that was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for doing that. It was really great. I'm sorry you didn't get to see the room. Unfortunately, we said we were going to do that and we didn't, so it was bad on our bad. But yeah, thank you so much. That was really cool. No, not on this subject. I just wanted to get that in.
Okay, awesome. Kevin, is there any more you want to say on the story for capability providers and different versions of APIs? Do you want to draw that to a close or wrap this up?
Yeah, I didn't really have any parting comments. I think it's, one of those things where we definitely would love to hear from everybody and continue the discussion. People want to get into the weeds on it in the Slack channel, or Slack channel, then I'm more than happy to do that. But yeah, to answer the other question, I think this community meeting is one of the right forums to bring up questions like this.
awesome. I'll start a new thread in the wasmCloud channel as well with that draft PR to, flush it out.
Awesome. Is this, Kevin, is this on its way to an ADR? Do you think there's going to be some sort of architectural decision record that we document to sort of say, this is how we're going to do this?
It could be, but we could also reach the conclusion that we aren't going to dictate how people version their stuff, and we're just going to have some semi-prescriptive guidance on, what would we do if we were in your shoes, and things like that. So like, there's the strategy that we're probably going to follow for building first party capability providers, and then there's probably going to be some recommendations for what we suggest people do with versioning for their providers. But like I said, it's probably going to end up coming down to individual choice.
Okay. All right. That's great, Kevin. We'll see how this discussion goes. But we should probably make it something very intentional, though, around just some guidance, because I think that Matt really brought up a great topic today. Thank you for that, Matt. Other discussions. Does anyone else have anything on their mind, or community driven, or anything that they want to discuss today?
I do have 2 community callouts. I don't know if this is the right forum for it.
Do I need to share them for you again?
No, I can.
Right.
I got it. Let's see. Okay, so I can do it. So I have 2 community callouts. Both of them are in the wasmCloud host runtime, which I really enjoy doing for a community callout, because I know that if you haven't touched Elixir before, it can be a little intimidating, and I really want to bring people into messing with it. I personally really like the functional side of Elixir, but anyways, I'm getting off on a side topic. So we had a bug report submitted from somebody in the community that got an error that we realized 2 different code paths can kind of lead to getting this error. So when you try to invoke an actor, you can get this log in the host log saying that it's missing a claim for a contract ID. This totally makes sense and should be denied when an actor isn't signed with the capability contract. But we also get the same error even if the actor is signed with the capability contract, if the link definition is misconfigured in the host. So in both of these situations, we should be denying the invocation, but we can actually disambiguate this a little bit better. And so this is a great first issue, because you get to actually poke at some of the code that we're looking, or some of the invocation code, and it should be a fairly quick fix with a high impact. And then the second one is a fairly simple one, but also has a high impact. We have just kind of a mismatched key value field in our host config. We write it out to RPC timeout, but it should be written to RPC timeout _milliseconds. I was trying to test doing a really long RPC timeout and noticed that it was not quite picking up the value that I was giving it. So like I said, two fairly quick punts. The goal of these community callouts is for anybody to be able to jump in and kind of fix this in their, everybody's kind of short on free time. So get in and contribute easily. So I saw the chat, but I don't know if it's related. It is not. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to, ask me here. And if not, we'll put it in the channel and tweet it out as usual.
All right, 2 community callouts, 2 great demos today, 3 capability providers. We got a regular 12 Days of Christmas going on up in here this week. Anyone else on the call? All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and as usual, we can kind of hang out. Everyone have a great week.